Today I've got an absolutely insane Austin game I had the other day. This is a match where I have to do most of the pushing. You're going to see that our battleships in this game aren't very interested in pushing in. They're pretty passive, and how do I deal with that as a light cruiser? Austin, of course, has a bit of a gimmick in that it has a 32mm upper belt, so we can auto-bounce a lot of armor-piercing shells at close range, and that's going to be crucial to a lot of the plays that I'm going to make here. Starting off with, it's pretty standard to go to this island on this map, on this side. I'm waiting for a potential destroyer to get spotted, and then I'm just going to pop my reload booster and try and kill him. This is a very standard play for an Austin, and probably a little bit better in a radar cruiser, since you'd actually be able to spot the DD yourself. But it's a good way to support my destroyer here, while also playing reasonably safe. I'm of course open to torpedoes, so I pop my hydro, and since there's no one on the enemy team that's playing the 9-10 line as a battleship, I'm reasonably okay with taking this angle. Even if I'm spotted, I'm not really worried about the Pommern citadeling me or doing a lot of damage to me because of that upper belt. And that's something that's key about the Austin. It's very different than a lot of light cruisers. It's a weird ship to play that you got to take advantage of that. I think you want to play very aggressive in the Austin to get the most out of it. Now that the initial deployments are somewhat known, I'm starting to think that I can get a little bit more aggressive. Like I said, no one on the 9-10 line allows me to play a little bit more pushed up, and the enemy team seems to, well, I mean, this is just a mistake that we're just going to capitalize on. This is a Unicum who maybe hasn't seen an Austin before, but yep, devastating strike. That can happen to a destroyer still. So we get a little lucky that that is the enemy destroyer player we were playing against, and now we can push in. You can see how passive my battleships are being. I don't really blame them when the destroyer was still up, but they were pretty far back, so that was a little bit disappointing to see. And you're going to see that throughout this game, that we just have to take the initiative all the time. But it's good that my team is finally getting a little closer to me, because Austin has okay AA. It's not amazing, but it's alright, and enough to hopefully deter the enemy carrier even just a little bit. The arcs are oftentimes too good on these guns that you're just not going to be able to shoot over very many islands, so keep that in mind, that it's a nice benefit to have these fast shell arcs, but it makes it a little tough to play certain islands. But for playing aggressively here, we're going to make use of these torpedoes, which are actually really, really good. They do a lot of damage, they're reasonably quick, and I think you get, what, 5 of them aside or 4 of them aside? It's really, really solid. 5 even. It's a really good torpedo power, and it's nice to be able to just dump them into gaps and close to islands where you think people might be pushing around, like this Missouri. And it's a really good way to deter people from YOLO rushing you. Something that not all light cruisers have. It's a really, really good tool to have when you're pretty vulnerable at close range. I mean, Austin is a bit of an exception, but things like the Worcester without torpedoes doesn't have amazing AP like something like a Des Moines would. So as a cruiser, you're pretty vulnerable in a spot like this if a battleship just pushes out at 4 kilometers. But in an Austin, even if we miss our torps, yeah, he's just not going to be doing that much damage to us. I'm not using my reload booster very effectively here. I'm not sure why I decided to pop it there, but I hadn't played Austin in quite some time before this video, so there'll be a few mistakes, but overall it was still a really amazing game. We're going to play even more aggressive and just nudge our nose out just enough to get a few shots in on this Missouri yet. It's something that is a bit of a gimmick when it comes to the spotting system in this game. You actually only get spotted based on the middle point of your ship, so you can actually poke your nose out around a lot of islands and not get spotted for quite some time. We finally do. So we didn't quite play it exactly right, but it's definitely possible, especially in ships like Des Moines, where a lot of the firepower is right up front. You can play a lot of nasty little island angles and actually not get spotted. Now that the Missouri goes down, we're, again, playing aggressive, leading the charge, because, you know, our teammates aren't really looking to push all that much. A Petrel, again, I'm not too worried about. We angle properly. He even uses HE on us, so now that we know he's shot, we can just torp him, and we're going to be just fine. Even a Pommern backing him up. Again, this 32mm plating is so strong at close ranges that I feel confident in doing this. We're also, using our first heal. We have 5 total heals on this ship. It's surprisingly tanky at close range and quite difficult to deal with. And this Pommern, thinking that I'm in secondary range, I'm probably going to get taken out here by him, but this reload booster is nasty. When you use it right, unlike I did a little earlier, it's just disgusting what you can do to people. And wait till the end when we absolutely melt somebody. We absolutely melt someone right at the end. But this Pommern, of course, is also melting quite quickly. Sap is a pretty amazing ammo type, considering the angle that we're hitting this guy at, and we're doing an absolute ton of damage still. It's kind of ridiculous. It's certainly an ammo type that you want to be using most often in the Austin. HE is useful for fires and all that, but I really want to be using the Sap because it's just so strong. You pen more than 32 millimeters, so most battleships are very easy pickings. Cruisers as well, destroyers. It's a really, really strong ship. And it's a lot of fun to play, although it's a weird one. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for most people to pick up for a steel ship. Orgone, I think, is just better all around and overall, but Austin's really unique and quite fun to play, so it's not a bad pick by any means. Now back to this match, all the pushing that we've done has gotten us up to some of the islands near B. This is a really strong position to be in because the enemies are forced to cross open water to get to the B cap from their side, whereas we have a lot of cover. So it's important to know that when you're coming from the C cap and contesting or trying to hold on to B, you have a massive advantage of these islands. So you don't really want to give that up. And that's why I'm going to try and use these islands here to isolate some fights, try not to expose my ship to all the enemy team that so thoroughly won the other side of the map. You can see we're also trying to avoid some of the planes coming in too, trying to use our AA, but the strikes are going to get through regardless at this point. And our team is here with us, which is really nice. So I thought there's potential for us to carry out this game, even though our carrier has gone down and we don't really have much spotting. I can just nose into this cap here, help our Soyuz cap it. The enemy team will be forced to push into us because unlike most matches, we're kind of even on points, we're kind of even on ships. This should be a pretty good endgame, and I'm really, really excited because an Austin with a lot of HP going into an endgame is always going to be a good time. So I get a little too close to this island, but it's a really safe spot to cap from if you've managed to push the entire enemy team out of the C flank. It's really, really kind of a nice nook to get into, but I push out a little too much, trying to get greedy for some damage here. If I get spotted, I could easily get dev struck. But unfortunately for us, our teammates that were not pushing the entire game, waiting for me to go do something, have now decided that this is the time to push. Yeah, so we lose our Soyuz. We're going to lose, I think, our other Soyuz as well quite quickly. Our Iowa is flat broadside to the entire enemy team. We're getting back capped. It's, yeah. So we're not going to win this game. Unfortunately, it wasn't looking great from the start, though, given how it started. But it's still a really good Austin game, and we're still going to try and win this game. There's still some things that I can do to make it a win. First of all, we need to get the B cap that hopefully is going to give me some freedom to maneuver, and we need to deal with this Mogador in the backline. So he gets a Citadel on me, so maybe that makes him a little bit confident that he can take me out. Keep that in mind. And I reverse. I don't really want to be caught in a crossfire like this. Kremlin can easily take me out if he's given multiple salvos at me. It's only 1 or 2 salvos from a Kremlin I'm really going to survive, even with this 32mm plating. So like I'm talking about all the time when it comes to brawling battleships, it applies to cruisers, it applies to DDs, it applies to everything. You want to isolate engagements. You don't really want to take engagements where there's multiple people shooting you from multiple different angles. And a light cruiser is no exception. Even if you have the DPM to sometimes deal with that, nice to isolate fights. So even though, our Soyuz is right about to die, our Iowa's already dead, we're last alive now, well, it's possible this Mogador makes a mistake. You can see I'm trying to get ready for him, and sure enough, he pushes up too close to us. I'm angled. Notice he has AP still. He was thinking, I'm going to Citadel this Austin to death and it's going to be really good. So I knew that he had that mindset given that earlier Citadel, so I had to stay angled. We're flat broadside to the dive bombers or skip bombers at this point, but Austin accelerates reasonably quickly. We're a relatively small target, so we get lucky that he didn't do too much damage to us. And at this point, the game is well and truly out of hand. We can't win this one. So decide to go out swinging. We still have a reload booster, and that's a 24,000 HP Kremlin with Kuznetsov. And like I said, someone melts at the end of this game. Oh man, the sap is filthy. It's filthy. The ship is a ton of fun to play. There's our Kraken, and a definite loss. This Goliath should kill us here with his AP. And yeah, that's what he does. So not a win, not a great game considering the support from the teammates, but we managed to make it work a little bit and made it a little closer than what this game probably would have had if we hadn't played so aggressive and actually managed to take a lot of people out. So like I said, I probably wouldn't recommend this as your first steel ship, but it is a lot of fun. And here's the build that I was using. Very DPM focused, very health focused. We're playing aggressive, trying to deal a ton of damage in very bursty amounts of time. And it's a lot of fun to play. Notice we're also taking reload here. I find the range to be more than enough. 15 kilometers with 9.3 kilometer concealment is a good enough ratio to be comfortable to play with. And yeah, at closer ranges, that's where you want to be playing with this main battery reload booster. And given the armor, like I mentioned, yeah, it's tough to take this thing out. If you angle it right, you're going to auto bounce stuff here. And, well, only Yamato and up are going to actually overmatch this part, which is just amazing. And then, you know, assuming they auto bounce here and they can overmatch this upper or front bow here, it's going to protect most of the Citadel, right? They'll pen, sure. They'll pen even this, but there's no Citadel behind here if you angle it like this. You notice it just goes out the other side of the ship. There's this little stubby Citadel that's basically impossible to hit. It's hard to Citadel this thing at close range, and that's where a lot of the power comes from. You can almost get all your turrets firing and your torps while still auto-bouncing. It's not quite, so keep in mind when the battleship shoots, you have to be ready for that to angle slightly in, but it's a tough ship to deal with at close range for battleships. I should also mention that the Jinan has the exact same upper belt armor, so you can also play pretty aggressive in this ship. Although it doesn't quite have the bursty firepower in the guns that makes it a little harder to play that aggressive, although you do have some insane torpedo power. So Jinan is a ship that you can also play aggressive in, but I find myself enjoying the Austin a little bit more. I really love this reload booster gimmick. It is just so much fun to play with. Not the easiest ship to play though, and that's why Bourgogne would probably be an earlier recommendation for me. It's also very good. It's a lot easier to play and much better in a wide variety of engagements, where Austin is pretty specific. But it's fun. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.